a seat, let's begin. It's Teaching Tuesday where the magic's within. Unlock the words, let the stories unfold. In a world of letters, watch the wonders take hold. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Every sound, every line brings us closer to turning our learners into super prosers. Phonics and fun, on a journey we'll lead. With every Tuesday, we plant another seed. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Step by step, we'll find our way. Through every challenge, come what may. In our group, you're never alone. Together we'll turn this skill into a stone. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll read, together we'll rise, together we'll rise. Teaching Tuesdays, the skies.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Teaching Tuesdays. I am your host, Katina Taylor, the founder and executive director of Dreams KC, an education-based nonprofit where we empower parents with the tools they need to teach their children foundational literacy skills. I am in Kansas City, Missouri, and we are having a snowstorm. We are snowed in, shut down. So this is a perfect time to bundle up, keep warm, and talk to parents and families about literacy. If you all know anything about me, you know my mantra is let's get lit. Literacy is liberation, because I stand firm on the foundation that once you learn to read, you are forever free. Those of you that have been with me, this is episode number 48 weeks strong, almost a year that we have been going with Teaching Tuesdays. This is a new season, 2025, where we are focused on the adolescent literacy learner. And I say that to just point out oftentimes that adolescents are not a part of the conversation. But we have those in grades 4 and above that oftentimes did not have a firm foundation in their literacy skills in pre-K to third grade. We can't just throw our hands up and say, oh, well, they didn't get it, catch it, and get it however you get it. No, we have to be intentional about continuing to support all students on their literacy journey, and that is the work of Dreams KC. Now, I want to say to you all, that does not mean that if your child is pre-K, first grade, second grade, or third grade, that you don't benefit from being here. You do, because the skills are the skills. They don't change. What changes, however, is our strategies and the materials and supplies that we use to teach those strategies or teach those skills and ensure that our children have mastered them, because we don't want our adolescent learners, a middle schooler or a fourth grader and a 12th grader, they're very different. And so what's going to create buy-in for them is going to be very different than what will create buy-in for a first grader. But the skills are the skills. They do not change regardless of how old they are. And we want to ensure that every child is a confident and competent reader. So that's the work that we do. That's what we stand on. For those of you, let me say to those in our private Facebook group, today, this evening, right now is the first day that simultaneously, as I broadcast into our private Facebook group, we are also live on YouTube. So I am so very excited for that opportunity to grow that audience. to ensure that families, no matter where they are, have access to this information. One thing I'll say also is, for those of you on YouTube or even in the private Facebook group, this may be your first time encountering Teaching Tuesdays. I want to let you know who I am, right? So I'm Katina. I am a Kansas City native. I never imagined being in the field of education. It is a second career for me, but I absolutely love it. 25 years in the education space, 15 of those years spent in the classroom teaching children. Started out in middle school, taught first grade as well, and then finished up in high school. I've been in traditional public school education settings. I've been in the charter school setting and in the private school setting. So, in that 15 years, I explored, I learned, I researched, I grew as an educator, and one thing was consistent: my literacy scores for my students always increased. They always got better. And throughout the time that I spent in the classroom, I also always tutored before school, after school, in the summers. And I had steady increases in literacy scores for the students in which I worked with. So it's oftentimes just good to give people the context, the background of why you should be here, why you should listen and learn and engage and interact with Katina. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that as we dive into the work. Last week, we talked about some of the struggles that adolescent literacy learners might have. This week, what we're going to go into is identifying the behaviors that show up in our adolescent learners that signify that they perhaps are struggling with literacy. That's what we're going to be talking about. So again, welcome to Teaching Tuesday. For those of you that may just be joining us, I'm Katina Taylor. I am so excited to have you all here as we dive into another important conversation about helping our kids become confident and competent readers. So tonight's episode is all about identifying struggles of adolescent readers. And what I mean is what signs to look for, and most importantly, what you can do to support them in the home environment. I believe wholeheartedly that parents are the first and most important teachers of their children. And we cannot hold parents accountable or responsible for partnering with us, our educational institutions, our teachers, in the literacy journey or the academic journey of their children if we haven't welcomed you into the space and we haven't provided you with the tools necessary to be successful in doing that. So I want to ensure that you can support them at home. And I want to tell you this, and you may know, you may not, but far too often, our adolescent learners, our tweens and our teens struggle in silence. They are embarrassed, they are shamed. And as parents, we have the power. You have the power to change that. So parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, early career educators, tutors, literacy coaches, you have the power. You have the ability to ensure that our children are not suffering quietly, alone, in isolation because of the challenges that they face with their literacy. We know that this occurs and it impacts all of the other content areas. And we want to pull the cover off. We want to ensure them that it is okay. We understand where they are today, but where they are today doesn't have to dictate their future. We can remedy the situation. So we're going to keep it real. We're going to break it down step by step. I'm going to attempt to leave you with practical tools that you can start using immediately with your child, with your children, with your students. So if you're ready to go, drop it in the chat. Say, let's get lit, y'all. Let's get started. Let's get moving. All right. So I'm going to make the slides bigger because it's more important that you see those slides. Remember that you can screenshot these. You can take notes. You can come back and look at this later It's all up to you. It lives here in the private Facebook group, and now it will be living in the YouTube universe, right? YouTube University, so to speak, where you can find everything. So let's get started. Again, this is Black History Month. We're still in Black History Month, so happy Black History Month to all of you. The theme this year is African Americans in labor. And I love AI, so I generate different images that resonate with me. And so this is just another one of those that I put together. This is what you generally see. It helps us track where we are. Again, this is episode 48. We are just a few episodes shy of 52, which means we will be going a year strong. So I'm so excited to celebrate that. I have some fun things in mind for that particular episode when we reach that 52nd episode. So I invite you to be with me on that Tuesday when we have our 52nd episode, meaning we've been doing it for a year. All right. So as I stated, we're talking about supporting struggling adolescent learners, adolescent readers. Now, oftentimes when we hear the term adolescence, if we were to talk to our friends, our family, perhaps a pediatrician, we would think when we use that term adolescent that we're talking about teenagers only. In the education space, however, that is not true. When we use that term adolescent learner, adolescent reader, we're talking about any child that is in fourth grade or above. So I want to be really clear and have you understand exactly what we're talking about when we identify an adolescent reader or adolescent literacy learner, right? Now, these students get very crafty as they get older. And they oftentimes are able to hide really, really well their literacy struggles. So, your job as a parent, as a caring adult in their lives, it is key. It is important because you spend so much time with them. You can observe those behaviors and begin to look beyond the behavior and get to the root cause. So, is it something going on with school, with their literacy journey, with their other content areas that is making them behave in certain ways? And that's what we're going to delve into today. So, it's one thing to know what they struggle with in terms of skills, it's another thing to identify the behaviors that show up so that you can begin to unearth what is going on with them. And that's what we're tackling today. So I hope that makes sense, right? I am put on my peepers, my helpers to make sure. And I know we get a little glare off of that. I'm gonna have to deal with this lighting at some point so that we don't have that glare. I promise you I will. But I have some notes. I want to make sure that we hit this. We hit it quick. We're not going to go super long tonight. And for those of you, again, that are just getting used to me, learning me, understand and know that these Teaching Tuesday episodes, they are the tip of the iceberg. And if you know anything about the study of icebergs, I've said it before, I'll say it again, that what we see above the surface of the water when we're looking at an iceberg is only about 10 to 15%. So when I do these Teaching Tuesdays, yes, they're practical. Yes, they're actionable. Yes, you're going to get information that you can use immediately. But understand and know this is an opportunity for you to get to know dreams and the work that we do to support families, early career educators, so that you then can support your children. When we get under the hood and we take that deep dive, those are our in-person training sessions, soon to be online. And so we are currently in partnership locally with the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center. We're 2 days a week while students are in tutoring sessions themselves. Then parents are working with me, Dreams KC, and we are taking a deep dive into how you can support your children. And I'll tell you why this is important. I would love, love, love to tell you that bringing your children to any tutor 1 day or 2 days a week is going to have a significant impact. It will have some impact. I'm not saying that it won't. What I am saying is you have a child that has a significant gap in skills or skill development. They haven't mastered certain skills yet. Then we need consistent and intentional support with them. Interventions is what you will hear in the education setting. Basically, what that means is that we should be working with our children 3 to 5 days a week 45 minutes maximum, 15 minutes minimum, to ensure that we begin to see them master the requisite skills to become, say it with me, put it in the chat, y'all, confident and competent readers. So that's what's important. That's what should be happening. One day, you're going to get something. 2 days, you're going to get some improvement. 3 to 5 days, you get significant improvement. And that is important when we look at the data for students that are struggling. If you're 2 or more grade levels behind, and we know that the older you get and the more intense that coursework gets, the academic rigor increases, the speed, right, increases, the quantity of work that they have to do in a school setting increases. If you're already struggling with literacy, the gap continues to widen. So if we can get it early, we can be intentional and consistent, then we can support students in doing better quickly, closing those gaps, finding the success. When they have those successes, it builds their confidence. We build their confidence. They want to do more. When they do more, they get to competence. And you heard me use the word mastery. For those of you that have been with me for quite some time, you know what I mean when I say mastery. But for those of you that may not know me or maybe new, what do I mean when I say mastery? We want our students, our children, to be able to independently demonstrate their understanding of a particular skill with 90% accuracy. That's what mastery is. Independent, demonstrating their understanding, 90% accuracy. All right. So let's dive right on in, y'all. So again, like I said, many adolescent literacy learners, they struggle with reading, and let's be honest, they get really good at hiding it. But if we don't catch them early, they can really hold our children back, our students back in every content area, not just reading. So we're going to learn the key warning signs of reading struggles. We're going to explore some research-backed strategies that actually work at home and in school, but certainly at home. And we're gonna talk about building the confidence and success of our adolescent learners. So you, again, are the most important. You're the first teacher of your own children, and you don't need a degree to make a difference. Y'all hear me? You don't need a degree. You need to have intentionality, consistency, and you made a decision that you want to support your children in becoming confident and competent readers. So that's what it is, all right? So some academic performance red flags. They're reading below their grade level or their peer group or where they should be according to formal and informal assessment data, right? So they are lower, their reading levels are lower than their peer group. They struggle with assignments. They may take a significant amount of time to complete their assignments, which leads to frustration for the student. And they may find it very difficult to recall textbook or information that they've read from different genres of text. I don't care if it's a magazine article, right? I don't care if it's research that they're doing, a newspaper article. They find it difficult to recall, retain, and or discuss the information. Oftentimes that occurs because there's a comprehension issue, and they have spent so much of their mental load, their mental lift, decoding the text that they really haven't had the opportunity to take it in, to think about it, to work with it, to be able to analyze, synthesize, summarize all the high level, higher order thinking skills, and be prepared to discuss it, recall it, etc. So these are some academic performance red flags that if we observe in our children, if we see happening consistently, that perhaps there is an issue in terms of their literacy development, okay? They're not. So we've said that. So let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. So here's some other behaviors that we may recognize for our children. Remember, these are adolescent learners, but it could also be happening for our younger learners as well. Okay, so they may avoid it whenever possible. I don't like reading. I don't want to do that. I feel sick. I'm tired. I'm mad. They come up with 1,000,001 excuses to avoid it. I don't like that book. That book stinks. This page is missing. It could be any. I don't like that cover. I don't like that author. They could be very superficial reasons and avoidance measures that are taken by these students, but they will avoid at all costs. You may see their anxiety levels increase. That means they may be breathing harder. They may get angry. They may, get kind of sullen, in a sullen mood, a melancholy mood, very frustrated, especially if they're asked to read aloud. Because what does reading aloud do? Well, for us, it gives us information, right? But when they're asked in a classroom setting, a large group setting, to read out loud, and they know that they have literacy challenges in their mind, they have a narrative playing, a tape playing that says, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I can't do this, I'm going to sound silly, my friends will laugh, I'll get teased or bullied. That frustration level, that anxiety level, it is going to multiply times 100 for that particular child, which can lead to some really significant social and emotional issues and challenges for that particular student. That's not what we should be doing. That's not what we want to do. And data, while it tells us there is a benefit to having a student read aloud, especially for us, right? To observe and get information for them as a reader, it doesn't necessarily always improve their reading skills. So we have to often ask ourselves, what are we actually trying to ascertain when asking a student or a child to read aloud? They may read very slow, very choppy, very robotish, right? Because they don't have the fluency yet. It may lack expression. They may have to pause and decode, or they may have to go back to the beginning of a sentence and start again, right? So very slow, labored reading is another way in which it shows up that they may have a literacy challenge. And then they may rely on guessing instead of sounding out words. I posted a video recently where students are looking at cars and they're spelling, like Porsche was the first one, Porsch, I think, E. And the parents said, well, what does that spell? They said car. And you'll see that with some readers, like, you're like, wait, what? It makes no sense, but they're relying on guessing instead of sounding it out because they haven't mastered the skills needed and necessary for them to be not focused solely on decoding, but get to the comprehension piece, the meaning making piece, which is the ultimate goal of reading, right? So these are some avoidance and reading behaviors that we may observe and see for all learners, but especially those adolescent learners as well. Okay. All right. So then we get into those comprehension struggles as well. So maybe they can read the words, they can decode, but do they actually understand? Are they actually able to make meaning? So what do I mean? They read correctly, but they don't get it. They can say the words, but after they say the words, you ask the question, so what did that mean? What were they trying to express there? They don't know what those words mean. They're just word calling, is what we say as educators, right? They can decode them, they can apply those skills, but they have no idea what the words mean. Okay? They can't summarize. If you ask what this is about and they say, I don't know, that's a problem. That is a significant problem, because remember, the ultimate goal of us reading any type of text, whether it's for entertainment, whether it's to learn how to do something like an instructional manual, if it's a nonfiction piece of text where we're trying to grow in our knowledge and apply it, they have to be able to comprehend, make meaning from the text. So if they can't tell you what they just read, we have a significant issue. They may also struggle to connect ideas. They have trouble linking what they've read to prior knowledge, their background knowledge, or answering what I like to say are the why questions, the open-ended questions. If you have a student they know the words, remember, they can read the text, but if they can't connect it to a text they've read before, information that they've had before, their prior knowledge, their background knowledge, and or, right, they can't answer the why. They can't make inferences, draw conclusions, that is another signal that, hey, comprehension may be a challenge or a struggle for this particular student, this particular child, right? So if they're reading without meaning, they aren't really reading then, are they? They can't be. So this is where we would need to build deeper thinking skills to help them process and remember what they've read. And we're going to get to the solutions, but I want you to start by just thinking about these behaviors that we see, the red flags, the sirens that are going off as we observe them as readers and engage with them, be it as parents, tutors, grandparents, uncles, aunts, whomever, reading interventionists, literacy coaches, classroom teachers. These are some things that signify there is a struggle going on with this particular reader. So if you guys are picking up what I'm putting down, drop it in the chat. If you have any questions, you have any comments, concerns, if something doesn't make sense, if you want to push back against something, I'm not clear, drop it in the chat. Let me know. Drop it in the comments, and I'll do my best to respond for sure. If you see my head bobbing and weaving, that's because I have another device. I'm making sure that I'm looking at your comments, who's on, all the good things, right? So then we get to those language and vocabulary challenges, okay? So we get to those, and it's like, all right, we can't get to comprehension if we don't understand the individual words and what they mean, right? So vocabulary is the key, one of the major keys to comprehension. Without it, reading does become a guessing game. So they may have limited vocabulary, meaning that they do not know or recognize as many words as their peers. Now, our students, when they are very young, birth to third grade, we definitely should be doing more reading to them. As they begin to gain skills, they should also be reading to us. So it's this give and this take. That helps us. That helps them, rather, build their vocabulary, talking to them. Remember, our brains are hardwired for oral language. The more we talk to and with them, not at them, the more we help them develop their vocabulary. There was a study some time ago that talked about like maybe 30 million word gap or something like that, but there was a significant word gap for certain demographics of students because their families didn't talk to and with, they talked at. So there never was this giving and take conversation. And in a lot of cultures, we think that is, that's disrespectful and they shouldn't talk back. And it's like, no, they're human beings with feelings and thoughts and all the things as well. We want to have dialogue with them. We want to encourage them to express themselves. And they can do that in an age-appropriate, respectful manner, right? So, and also understand that talking at them and not giving them the opportunity to talk to and with us limits their vocabulary development when they're really young. Well, by the time they get to fourth grade and above, they then have a significant or a lower number of vocabulary words that are embedded in their long-term memory. They can't pull on them. So it's the same. And if they're not reading, if we're not reading to them, they're not reading themselves, we're not doing readers theater, all of the things, and expanding that vocabulary. And I always give the example of, I say, what's that piece of furniture that we sit on in our living room? Well, it can be a sofa, it can be a couch, it can be a divan. Why can't we use all those terms and explain that we're talking about the same thing? That's how we increase vocabulary. It can be very simple things. It doesn't have to be anything sophisticated or difficult at all. All right. They may also be poor spellers. Remember that reading and writing go hand in hand. There's an intersectionality. They are not taught in isolation. They should not be thought about in isolation, separate from one another. They are dependent upon one another. The more we read, the more we interact and engage with vocabulary, the more we master those foundational skills that should translate into the way in which we write. The more we read, the better we should write. And vice versa. The better we write, the more we write, we pick up that writing stamina, then it should impact the way in which we engage with text. And when we talk about our struggling adolescent learners, they will struggle with common words, very, very common language. So we want to make sure that that is not the case for them. But if we observe it, then we have the information we need to address it. They also, of course, we talked about they may have writing difficulties. So they may have a hard time organizing their thoughts into clear sentences or paragraphs. I have seen countless times when I work with students, their inability to have writing fluency, writing stamina. If I give them a writing prompt and I say, write me a paragraph about this thing. What do you want to be when you grow up? If you could be anything in the world, what would it be? It has been disappointing at times to see my third, fourth, fifth, sixth graders, high schoolers even, not be able to write a really good paragraph. Now, think about this. They're challenged in their classrooms, on their jobs, maybe, certainly college and university, to write essays and research papers and personal narratives, all of these things. If they can't write a paragraph, can you imagine how anxious and frustrated they will be attempting to write an essay, a personal narrative, or research paper? This is an indication that there's a significant literacy challenge, and we have to encourage them and support them in closing that gap. So, stronger vocabulary equals stronger readers. So, let's go ahead and talk about what happens when they start hiding their struggles, right? What are the coping mechanisms that we'll see? So oftentimes, now I will tell you that audiobooks are reading. That is reading, but they shouldn't only be doing audiobooks. If they don't ever want to pick up an actual book in their hand and read, and they only want to use audiobooks, that may be a sign that they are using a coping mechanism, that they are having some challenges and they are using audiobooks to cover it up. All of us, based on time and ability, if we're in a car, it's easier for us to listen to a book, an audio book. But if we're at home, we can put our feet up and set a timer and just read. But if they're always wanting those audiobooks, that's probably an indication. Again, we talked about guessing words based on context, right? So they're looking at the pictures or the context clues instead of decoding. Red flag. That is a coping mechanism that students will use, okay? And then they may excel in other areas and use those areas to throw you off. So they may thrive in math, sports, social settings, in places or environments that they don't have to read or do any heavy reading. And light reading may be okay. Heavy reading, they will reject it. And they devote their time and attention to those things because they know they're good at it. That's what they want to do. Those are coping mechanisms. Those are behaviors that tell us that the thing they don't want to do or that they're not good at, they will put off to the side. And I'm going to go over here and continue to grow in this area. So we want to look for those things. We want to observe those things. I tell all parents you should be keeping some type of journal or some notes, not just mental notes. Like, when did you observe it? What was happening? What was the behavior? You want to be jotting these notes down. Why is this important? It's important for you because you're going to support their academic journey. One, you have to have this information. Two, they are still going to school. I don't care if that's a micro school. I don't care if you're homeschooling. I don't care if they're going to a traditional public school, charter school, private school, faith-based institution. They're going somewhere somebody's teaching them. If I want to introduce a child to an adult that is going to be responsible for partnering with me in the education of that child, I need to give them information. They have to get to know my child. So I'm going to come to the table saying, this is what I have observed. This is what I know. This is how they learn best. Here's some gaps. Here's their strengths. Here's the things we're working on. This is what we're celebrating. Like, so it's a measure, right? It's a balance. These are the good things, the positive things, the strengths. Here's some challenges, some difficulties. Here's some areas for improvement. We're going to work together and continue to move this child. That's what we should be doing. So that's why I say it's important for you to identify these behaviors, where they're struggling, how they're struggling, to be able to formulate a plan to support them. Okay? All right, let's keep it moving. So social and emotional signs that we have a student or child, an adolescent literacy learner that may be struggling. They lack confidence. They say, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I can't do it. They may be able to do other things, but they like this, school ain't for me. I don't want to do that. So that shows up. I'm just not good at reading. I don't like it. Social and emotional, right? Avoid class discussions. They're not problematic. They don't cause a whole lot of attention. They don't want to draw attention to themselves. They can literally, have you ever met a child that a teacher might say, I forget they're even in the room because they're so quiet? Well, sometimes they're intentionally being quiet. They want to just melt away, not be seen or noticed because they feel like the spotlight then won't be on me, right? They may but the flip side, the opposite side is that kid that's on the other side of the pendulum, right? And they get frustrated, they get anxious, they act out, they complain, they shut down when reading tasks come up. That may be that child that says, can I go to the nurse? Can I go to the bathroom? My stomach hurt. Or they'll pick a fight, an argument. It'd be something very small. And, next thing you know, it's blown way out of proportion. There's a whole fiasco going on in the home or at school in the classroom. So sometimes you have the kid that is just going to shrink, isolate, get very quiet. They don't want the spotlight. But then you have the other ones going to act out because if I can get out of the environment, no one will know. And I talked already about the isolation. They feel different. They feel excluded from their peers. They may often be bullied. They may be labeled by their peer groups. We know that children, they don't often think. They don't often read the room. And so I'm hoping and praying that we do more work around how we interact and engage with our peer groups. We do that by teaching them to be good people, right? But that's some of the work that we need to do. But kids can be cruel and they can adopt a mob mentality, especially some children want the spotlight off of them. So then they criticize others when they may be having some of the same challenges. But these are some of the social and emotional signs that show up for students that may be having some academic challenges, specifically some literacy challenges. So this is why we need intervention and encouragement. We need to be talking to them about, we recognize that you have this gap, this challenge, this difficulty, but here's some of your strengths. And then every time they move closer and closer to mastering a skill that they didn't have before, we're celebrating it. I often tell parents and they laugh at me. I'm like, remember when they were potty training and we threw a big old party the moment they used the bathroom? The same thing with their academics. Like, get ridiculous with it. Get on their nerve with it. Right? Be genuine, because of course they pick up when we're not genuine, but we want to celebrate because that boosts their confidence. And we know that as we increase their confidence, the more willing they will be to try the skill, right? The more willing they are trying the skills, practicing the skills, the quicker they get to mastery. So we not only have increased confidence, we've increased competence. Right? All right. So I want to make sure that we're clear on that. So let's go. So what can we do? We've got all these red flags. We know what the coping mechanisms are. We know that they may be dealing with some vocabulary issues, decoding issues, comprehension issues. How do we help them? That's the thing, right? We want to strengthen their fluency. This fluent reading is smooth, it's expressive, it's automatic. And we can help them develop this. Like, it's not choppy, it's not robotic, it's not slow. The more they read, the more we build their fluency, right? But there's some very specific things that we can do. So echo reading is one of those things. Now, with my younger children, I give them what's called a reading phone. And it's really just PVC pipe. And I'm curving my fingers here and here because that's what I do with the PVC pipe. I build these pipes. You can go to, like Home Depot, whatever. If you have younger ones, they can read because most young ones want to read out loud. They want to hear it. They just haven't yet mastered silent reading. And so they can hear this whisper back and they can tell when something makes sense or doesn't make sense, or maybe they've missed a word, that type of thing. For our older adolescent readers, that echo reading means they are going to repeat something that we have done. Remember, I do, we do, you do. They can repeat back with the same pacing. So we're modeling and demonstrating for them what fluent reading is, what it looks like, how it sounds, right? And then we say, now repeat that back the way I did and track it as you read. So we're picking up the pace. They're working with the decoding. They're working with expression, etc. And you don't have to work on all those things at the same time. You pick one. And as they master, you move to the next thing and you move to the next thing. Sometimes that goes really fast for students. Sometimes students need extra time. But echo reading is a great way to actually have them build their fluency. Repeated readings. Reading the same passage multiple times to build their confidence with it. That, and some people go, who wants to read the same thing over and over? How many kids want to read their favorite book over and over? Students will do it if we give them the context. This is going to support you in understanding and building your confidence with this type of text, with your comprehension, with your fluency, with your vocabulary development. If they spend all their time decoding on the first read through, then the second read through, they're going to read with more fluency because they've already done the work, right, of decoding. That third time through or that fourth time through, they're going to be so good at the word calling piece that they can really focus on the comprehension piece. And that, remember, is the ultimate goal of reading. All right. So then paired reading, we're going to take turns. You do, I do. You do, I do. So on and so forth. So we are consistently modeling what proficient mastery looks like in terms of reading, right? Taking turns. And then, of course, if we're using audiobooks, I like and I recommend the on-screen audiobooks for our children. Not us. Like us, we can throw on some headphones or be moving around the house. We're listening all the things. But our students, we want them tracking and following along with the text and the audio at the same time, because that's going to help them increase that vocabulary knowledge, that comprehension, etc. So we want to make sure that these are some of the things that we are doing immediately, consistently, intentionally to help them build that fluency. All right. So then we move to comprehension. I will tell you that good comprehension starts before the book is ever opened. Just let that sink in for a minute. Good comprehension starts before the book is ever opened. Well, what do you mean, Katina? Thank you for asking. I'm going to tell you. So before we ever read, we want to ask them, look at the cover, look at the title, right? Read the back of the book. What do you think this book is even about? What do you think is going to happen? How might it progress? Then during reading, you're pausing and asking questions as well. What do you think is going to happen next? Why did they do that? You may ask some of those concrete questions. What's the setting? Who's the main character? Who's the supporting characters? What problem do we see beginning to happen here? How might they solve that problem? Right? After reading, you're asking more. Can we summarize and talk about the who, what, when, where, why, how, what for, all the questions. And as we become more proficient as readers, we want to ensure that we're not just asking those concrete, who was the main character? What was the setting? All of those questions. Those are concrete, tangible things we can pull from the text. We want them to go into those higher level thinking skills where they're having to summarize, analyze, right? Synthesize the information, draw inferences, conclusions, etc. about what actually happened. These steps really train them to begin to think critically while they're reading. Okay, so these are the ways in which we can improve that reading comprehension. And then we talked about expanding their vocabulary. As they begin to encounter new words, different words, have them write them down. Get a simple, Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, Five Below, whatever. It could be cute. It could be simple, whatever it needs to be. If you have a creative kid, have them decorate the cover, but this is your word journal. I've talked about that before. So they can write down new words that they encounter and then refer back to them, use them in their writing. Remember, they go hand in hand. You want to get them studying. What does this prefix mean? What does this suffix mean? What is the Latin root of this word? Word parts are important and they help us identify the meaning of words that we are encountering for the first time. And then you want to play word games. I love Scrabble. I love word searches. I love Boggle. I like Outburst. Like all of these word games that exist, and you can make up your own, right? But that helps us expand and grow that vocabulary. Okay. So these are just some basic ways, easy ways that you can immediately begin to help them expand and grow that vocabulary. All right. So then we go to boosting their confidence and motivation. As adolescent learners, they do not want their mamas, their daddies, their teachers picking their books. Now, that doesn't mean I want them to have grade level text, but I also want them to have decodable text for adolescent readers. Two different things. They may like graphic novels, sports stories, magazines. They're all reading. Don't tell them Captain Underpants is not reading. It is. If that's what they're like and that's what's going to get them to open a book, let them have it. Now, as parents, I cannot police what you feel is appropriate for your children, but what I will say is get something that they're going to be excited about, that they have interest in, that they can pick out and choose on their own. Give them, gradually release and give them some independence around what they choose to digest. If you feel like it's something that's not appropriate, have a conversation about why you think that's not appropriate. If it's something you disagree with, our kids are not going to always agree with us. They're not going to always take on our belief system. And if you think they are, you in for a rude awakening, I tell you that. So they're individuals. They are individuals with their own minds, and we have to honor that, especially in the adolescent learners. I'm not saying expose them to things that they shouldn't be exposed to or don't align with, the set morals and values of your life. But what I am saying is open it up. We can't police them forever, right? And we want them to have a broad swath of experiences and knowledge and information so that we can actually have them critically think about what is happening in the world around them and their lived experiences. So allow them to choose is what I'll say. Make it fun. Maybe them and their friends get together and they do a book club, right? The library offers book clubs. Make it a competition within the family. Like, right, this is the chapter book that all of us are going to read together, and then we'll get together and discuss it. I'm doing that with my son and my sister right now. We're reading a book and we're talking about it, right? And so I do that with my colleagues, my peer groups. I'm in several book clubs because it just makes it fun and social. You get to bounce ideas off of one another. And we begin to develop relationships, which is needed in the lives of most kiddos anyway. Caring adults, caring friends in a social circle. I can't talk today. Social circle is really important for them. And then you want to make sure that you're connecting reading to life. I always say text to self, text to text, text to world. How are we connecting what they're reading to what's going on outside of them? Does it remind you of a lived experience you have? Does it remind you of something that's happening right now in time or something that happened in the past? Does it remind you of another text that you read before, and how so? So we want to be making sure that we are building their confidence, their ability to discuss the text, they're enjoying the process of reading, etc. That boosts their confidence, and you guys already know it's a connection between confidence and competence, and that motivation to keep trying. So that's what we want to do. Confidence grows when reading feels rewarding and not punishing. Never, ever punish a child by saying, go in your room and read a book. You've immediately undone anything that you think you could have done positively in regards to reading. Reading should never be a punishment. Please, 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 I beg of you, do not make reading and or writing sentences. Do not do that. It is not a workable method. It yields no benefit as a punishment. I promise you, it does not. All right. So what are next steps? You want to make sure that you're identifying struggles early so that you can take action. That means you have to be an observer of your children. You have to document the things that you see and observe. And then as you engage with them as readers, they make note of these things, right? Then you talk to a tutor, a literacy coach, a reading interventionist, their classroom teacher, discuss, are you seeing these same things? How's it showing up for you? What plan can we put in place to ensure that our child is having their issues addressed? So again, as I always say, you're the most important, powerful teacher of your own children. When you identify those struggles early, those challenges early, and provide support, you take the reins in shifting the trajectory of your children so that they're not just surviving, they're thriving, that they're fully engaged participants in their own lives. So that's what I have for Teaching Tuesday for today. Next week, what we're going to be talking about is the impact of poor literacy on academic performance across content areas. So I want to make sure that you all are aware of what we're discussing week to week. Here's the thing, this QR code on screen, what I did is I kind of took the things that we talked about tonight and I put them in a very user-friendly checklist. You can access the checklist by scanning the QR code. You can download it and keep it. And just if you notice these things, you observe these things, ask your child's teacher, tutor, reading interventionist, whomever, literacy coach, whoever's working with them on their literacy journey, are they observing these things? Right? So you want it, because that then gives you the tool, the information you need to say, hey, my child may really be struggling or having some difficulty. Now we have the information we need to address it. Okay. If you haven't yet taken the book access survey, remember, I'm still in need of folks to do that. So I encourage you, please, to take the book access survey. If you are in the KC metro area, that means Grandview, Lee Summit, Blue Springs, the Northland, KCK, Belton, Raymore, you name it. We need this information so we can determine whether or not we truly have a book desert here in Kansas City. So we need to know, do you have access to books? Are you growing your home library? Where are you getting them? Are they diverse, etc.? We want to ensure that we are utilizing the resources we have available to us in the most efficient and effective way possible to grow our children into confident and competent readers. Y'all know I say it all the time, right? So I want to make sure that we get that information. All right. If you have someone that needs it in Spanish, we have it in Spanish here. So this is the access code to take the survey. It takes less than 10 minutes. I promise you it does. So if you have a Spanish speaking brother, sister, that needs it in Spanish, as that is their primary language, then they can access it there and take it in Spanish as well. Don't forget that we are doing, because of the snow and the weather this week, we were supposed to resume our in-person classes at the W.B. Du Bois Learning Center. It has been put off till this coming Monday. So I hope to see you all there. You can use the QR code to register yourself for the Foundation of Reading literacy training that I do in depth with parents. It's an hour and a half. That's the same amount of time that your children are there working with a certified education professional, getting tutoring support in either math and or reading or STEM, believe it or not, as well. And remember that the Learning Center serves children from kindergarten to 12th grade. So no matter where your children are, as far as K-12, there is space for them. Okay. And remember, I hope you all got to check out the first episode of Policy Pulse, the education edition. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't taken away from Teaching Tuesday by discussing some of the policy changes that are happening as our United States has a new administration. And so myself and my colleague, Cecilia Belzer-Patton, are bringing you Policy Pulse, the education edition, every Thursday, 6:00 p.m., live on the Dreams KC Facebook page, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. We go live in all of those spaces at the same time. This week, we'll be talking about the executive orders that have been specifically signed off on as it relates to K-12 education. and what they mean for you as parents, as educators, as community members that just want to know what is happening. All right, so tune in live for that. Don't forget Black Children's Book Week. Yay! It starts on, I think, Sunday. Yes, Sunday the 23rd and goes through March 1st. Very, very excited. I will be interviewing some African-American Black children's book authors. You will get to learn about them, their journey as authors, their books, where you can purchase them. We just want to celebrate, love on one another as Black Children's Book Week moves forward. If you're looking for new books for your children, decodable books, traditional storybooks, or trade books as we call them, then this is going to be the week for you. There will be tons of information posted about Black Children's Book Week, and I am so excited. We've already started putting out some posts about it, so check those out and engage with some of those authors. Follow them. And I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. We're going to bring you some amazing folks. And that's it. That's all I got for y'all today. We went a little bit over time, about 10 minutes longer than I like to go. I usually try to keep it around 45 minutes. So y'all know I always say this. You know, y'all need to start saying it with me. Y'all need to drop it in the chat as we wrap up. You can reach me at info@dreamskc.org if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. But until Thursday or next Tuesday for Teaching Tuesday, as I always say, let's get lit, y'all. Bye-bye.
Oh, welcome in. Grab a seat. Let's begin. It's Teaching Tuesday where the magic's within. Unlock the words. Let the stories unfold. In a world of letters, watch the wonders take hold. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Every sound, every line brings us closer to turning a learner